Welcome to Ag Matters, covering positive agriculture stories from across Alaska on Big Cabbage Radio.
MIke Chmielewski here at Big Cabbage Radio in Palmer, Alaska. And of course, it's my great pleasure to welcome on the phone Tandy Hogate, who normally does the interviewing. I'm going to be the interviewer, and she's going to be talking about an exciting new adventure I think you're setting out for. Is that correct?
We are. We needed more to do, so we thought we'd jump all in with both feet on something new.
Okay. So for listeners who don't have a clue what we're talking about, this is going to be a way for you to share information about the kind of things that we've been dealing with Ag Matters, and you've been dealing with your farm for a long, long time. So without further ado, begin the description. What's this all about?
Thanks, Mike. That was fun. All right. So we are launching, I should say, a brand new magazine. It's written by Alaskans for Alaskans, and it's called Sustainable Alaska. Our tagline for the magazine is living close to the land in the last frontier. So the focus of the magazine is really kind of thriving and embracing our climate, embracing everything that Alaska has to offer, and finding a way to use that for further sustainability within the state.
Okay, that's a mouthful and a pretty ambitious effort. Talk about ways in which you came to this. Did you have models from other locations, other examples, or did this just spring whole cloth?
So that's a good question. You know what, Mike? We have our fingers in a lot of pies right now. We have our farm, we have a nursery, we put on the Alaska Homestead Expo. I have a group called Lady Homesteaders that meets monthly, and we kind of work on education on just kind of self-sustainability. And something that I strive to do, and that I'm passionate about, but that I don't get to do a lot of, is to write for education. That's kind of where my heart is. It's where I always dreamed that when I was a little girl, I just wanted to be Laura Ingalls, right? Like I grew up off grid. I kind of did live her lifestyle, but I didn't realize it at the time. But I wanted to write books about my life, right?
Okay.
Or books about other people's lives, and so it just felt like kind of the final peg to make this kind of whole business that we're building complete was to put out a magazine. But the funnest thing about this magazine is it has a few of my words in it, but it's written by fellow Alaskans. And I think my favorite part of this, when I first put out a query, I put it in a group in Facebook, and we sent out an email. We have a pretty extensive email list, so we sent out an email, and I posted on our social media page. And I thought, oh my goodness, I hope I get at least 2 or 3, because I kind of thought I was going to have to write this whole magazine myself, and I was coming up with ideas of things to write about and people to ask and all this stuff. And within a couple days, the emails just started flooding in of people saying they really wanted to write. And I was talking to a friend who publishes a similar magazine, and she said, here's what's going to happen. These people are going to offer to write something, and then they're going to disappear. You'll never hear from them again. So again, I was expecting this to happen. That is not at all how it went. As a matter of fact, I'm still getting queries for this winter edition, which it's pretty much too late for that. Now I'm starting to take queries for the spring edition, and folks are excited to share their stories. And I've learned how smart, how resourceful, and wise and generous Alaskans are, hugely in part through putting out this magazine.
Okay, so let's have the detail now. When we talk about a magazine, one of the first things that we usually look toward is how often it's coming out. Describe how you decided to do it with a certain number of opportunities during the year.
That's a good question, Mike. It was a lot of fun kind of figuring that out. So we decided that quarterly would be the bite that we could handle. It's a lot of work putting out a magazine, and especially this wasn't done on a whim, but it kind of feels a little bit like it was, because I just thought, let's do a magazine, and then we just jumped in. So I didn't know what I was doing at the time, and still don't, maybe to a certain degree, but we're learning. But quarterly felt like it was manageable. So right now, what we've committed to is a winter, a spring, a summer, and a fall edition for 2025. So we'll get through those, and then we'll see kind of what that looks like. The fun part is, and I don't have an answer for you on this, are we going to do some print magazines, or is it all going to be virtual? Print magazines are really, really expensive. It's kind of amazing to me how much it is, and it gives me a better understanding for why now. We used to get a magazine for 99 cents off the rack when I was, younger. And
yeah, I can remember that, right.
Yeah, and they're $12 now. Now I see why. Because the cost of publishing a magazine and then mailing is really expensive. So we're trying to kind of balance that. We're trying to decide. We have to decide by Friday because it goes to print on Friday. We just set that deadline. It's what we're doing. I think what we're leaning towards is doing we'll do a limited number of print magazines, and then the rest will be digital. So it can kind of, no matter whatever you can afford, you can still jump in and enjoy it.
So how are you going to do the charging for print versus digital?
So they will have two separate prices because the print is just so much more expensive. But the bottom line is, here's what we're working towards. We'd like by 2026, which seems so far out, but it's not. It's only 10 months away, right?
Right.
We'd like to. I don't know if we'll do it more often. I personally would rather do a publication that goes out fewer times but is higher quality. So I want to make sure that we're able to give it the full attention that it needs. But we do intend to move to an all-print model, hopefully by 2026. So it just takes some time to build up readership and to get things to the point where we can get it affordable. Because, of course, when you're buying in small quantities, when you're buying 50 or 100 of a magazine, it costs a whole lot more than if we're buying 1,000 or 10,000.
Okay, so one of the other things that I have noticed about magazines that come out, newsletters and so on, is that typically there's a theme for each one. Are you going to follow that pattern, and what are your themes if that's the case?
At this point, our theme is seasonal. So we've got our winter issue that's going out right now, and that one is going out. At the end of it'll start going out at the end of the week, and it's got some kind of wintry type articles. There's an article from Hanson Heritage Homestead that talks about building a farm from scratch. That's a really long, in-depth article that I think is going to be a great read, especially for people who are wanting to just get started. And what better time to be thinking about that than in the winter, right?
Right.
And then there's another one about safety on the ice, written by Amber Jaworski. I'm not sure how to say her name.
I think you got it right. Right.
Is it? Okay.
Yep.
And then there's another one about chaga by Nakira Lane. It's a fascinating article about chaga. So there's an article by Margie McDonald about fallow time, about kind of our slower time as we're, when we're in the winter, when we're heading into spring, and the value of that. There's some articles about raising sheep and goats. There's some kids articles. We had a couple of kids contribute, so that's really fun. There's one on freeze drying. It covers kind of the gamut of winter things. That's what we're focusing on for this first edition.
Okay. So you have already identified that you're involved with a whole bunch of other things. And, of course, with the station, Do Ag Matters, there's all kinds of events. You have a large event at a very large venue in Wasilla. And how are you deciding to fit this in? Because I could see as you're going along, initially you have articles, but as you move along, you begin to say, okay, how does this magazine support or bring together a variety of topics that we're engaged in? Have you thought about that?
I have, and I love that question. I wasn't expecting that question, but it gives me the opportunity to share kind of behind the scenes what's happening with this magazine. So as with most things, that bright ideas, if you want to call them that I come up with, I often think about the benefit and the value of it without, I do think about maybe what it's going to, you have to think about what it's going to cost, how much time it's going to take and all that. But I tend to definitely wear rose-colored glasses. And so far, it's served us well. But there comes a time when you have to kind of maybe pump the brakes a little bit and make sure that everything that you're doing is getting the full attention that it needs.
Right.
And so when we started this magazine from the get-go, I knew, which is very different from the farm, I knew that the magazine was going to require some sort of staff. What I didn't know was number one, where the money was going to come from to pay for it, and number two, who are these people going to be? I didn't have, a bunch of ideas in the back of my mind of who it was going to be. And ironically, a gal reached out to me. She's a local gal, and she said, I just really want to be part of this. She said, I love what you're doing. I love the stories that are going to be told. And I don't remember her full background. She has a background in journalism and teaching English. And so I sent her one of the articles and said, what would you do with this? And her edits were brilliant. They were very kind and very gentle to the writer, but they were also very pointed and very, this is how you can make the article go from really good to really awesome. And so she jumped on board, and that was just such a cool thing. On our farm, we typically we go a little rogue. We don't hire a lot of help. We do events where we hire help, but for the most part, the majority of what we do kind of on our own and just hire, like at the expo, we just hire people to help on the day of or during the weekend of, for the most part. But this magazine definitely will be a little bit different. It's going to be staffed, and I think that's the cool thing about Alaskans is there is so much talent in this state that I just know the right salesman is going to come along, and the right, maybe feature column article writer is going to come along. And so we're just we're doing this on a wing and a prayer, but so far this magazine is so much better than I ever dreamed it could have been. It's so much better.
MIke Chmielewski here at Big Cabot Radio in Palmer, Alaska. And I'm speaking with Tandy Hogate, and she's talking about a new extension of the work that she's been doing. I guess the name of the magazine, once more.
The name of the magazine is Sustainable Alaska.
Okay, Sustainable Alaska. And we talked about having a charge associated with it, 2 different charges. Have you pinned that down?
We haven't pinned that down. I'm still working on that. That's the hardest part of any task, whether we're pricing berries for the farm or pricing magazines. It's a tough balance, and I haven't figured that out. But it launches on Friday, so we'll know then, right?
I guess you would have to know by then, because people are going to say, oh, we'd like to do this. How much do I send you? And you're going to have to say, so,
we're going to have an answer.
So talk about the process you're going to use to come up with those numbers.
Well, typically we, especially with the print magazine, we don't have the infrastructure to go with one of the big publishers. The advantage of a big publisher is you get it for a whole lot cheaper per issue, plus they mail it for you. So, all I'm doing is sending them a spreadsheet with names and addresses, and they're taking care of all of it. But that with a hefty price tag and a, several thousand magazine minimum. So we're bootstrapping this a little bit, and we're going to get it printed. One thing I'm passionate about is a high-quality magazine. I've bought plenty of magazines they just don't feel good in your hand.
Right,
and there's something about when you're holding a print magazine, you want, and we've got some photographers who have sent us pictures.
So you have photographs that are they're going to be included in this.
We do, and we need to do them service. So the print magazine, when you consider our price for printing and then the price for shipping, we're just kind of figuring that out, and then we'll add, I'm paying every single person who writes for the magazine gets paid. Every single person who donates or who doesn't donate, who sends us some photographs that we use, they get paid. So that all just gets included in, and honestly, I send stuff to my bookkeeper and she helps me figure it out. She's more the numbers gal. So,
okay, so for listeners who will be hearing this at various times in various places, both here in the Palmer-Wasilla area, Big Lake area, and then later up in Talkeetna, where should people go if they're interested they've been excited by what you've talked about, and they need to go somewhere to be on a list to either get the print or the digital? What's the best source for finding out and then obtaining one or another version?
That's a great question. I like to say all roads lead to Common Ground Alaska, so that's our farm website. So if they just go to commongroundalaska.com on Friday the 14th, we will have all of the information there. It probably won't be there on Thursday, but it'll be there on Friday.
So, and then Friday and after, you'll be able to go and do that. Do you have a number of print versions that you're going to be doing at this point?
No, I'm kind of leaning towards 100. It's a number where, when you order 1 or 25, the
Sure.
discount's not that much. But once you order 100, then, there's a good enough discount. I struggle with this because we can't charge. I don't expect anyone to pay $30 or $40 for one single magazine.
Right.
So we have to buy in enough volume that it's going to get the price down to where it's somewhat affordable. But I just have to say too, Mike, that when folks buy this magazine, I know that they're probably curious and hopeful, but I also know they're taking a risk, because what if it isn't everything we say it is,
Sure.
And so
there's that other option, though, that you've described, which is the digital version, which you can distribute far less costly, and that gives a person a chance to say, oh, maybe I want the print version.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
But we just appreciate anyone who invests in this, because what I'm hoping, the big picture vision for this is exactly the same as our farm and with the Alaska Homestead Expo and all of that. What we're trying to do is encourage Alaskans with what they can do. That's kind of like our overarching vision. That's our core value. What can we do here? And it's going to take community. We're going to have to work together, but it's also going to take some resilience and some outside the box thinking. And that's why having these articles from people with their boots on the ground, living this life, raising goats in 40 below and feet of snow, and this is how we do it. I think that's what gives this so much value, because there's tons of value to learning from folks from the lower 48, and I have some speakers that I love to listen to, but there's something to be said about learning from people that you can relate to, that when they talk about, last winter's blizzard, when it took them 3 hours to shovel their way into their barn, you can remember, and you're like, I was there for that blizzard. I remember how difficult that was. And so keeping it really close to the core of Alaska, I think, is the biggest thing. And learning, and some of it's entertaining. We've got some entertaining stories in there, too. So.
Sure. Well, I applaud your effort, and you're checking it out and you're testing the waters to see if you've got the right collection of stories and presenting them in a way that will attract people. And so, again, I applaud you for doing that. You have time also, if you're doing quarterly, to get the feedback from people that will allow you to say, okay, here's how we may want to change up a little bit as we go into the next edition. Yeah.
Absolutely, because the magazine, it's fulfilling my dream, but it's not about me. It's about how can we build this community and make living in Alaska a little easier and feel a little bit more like we're kind of all in this together and we're figuring it out. I want to feel like we're moving forward.
Okay. Tandy Hogate, I've asked a bunch of questions and we've covered this pretty well. Are there any other things you'd like to say about this particular endeavor as we're finishing up, or anything else?
Not really. We're just excited and so grateful when people are willing to give us a try, and we do. Like you said, I am so open to suggestions, but we also are looking for authors for our spring, summer, and winter edition, coming up in 2025. So if anyone has anything that has to do with living close to the land in Alaska that they want to write about, we definitely want to hear from you. So you can reach out on our website, commongroundalaska.com, and we definitely want to get these articles in there so we can all read them and learn.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's a good request. I suspect you're going to be hearing from people. Well, stay well out there, and we'll talk again very soon.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Ag Matters, covering positive agriculture stories from across Alaska. Ag Matters is a production of Radio Free Palmer, recorded at our studios in Palmer, Alaska. For more information about this program, email manager@radiofreepalmer.org.